Next up, we have Chris Jericho versus AJ Styles. And this actually had, I thought, the most compelling storyline amongst all the feuds leading into WrestleMania. Primarily because it relied a lot on Chris Jericho's very heelish and awesome promos. But he did it in such a way that uh, you really loved to hate him. And you wanted to see AJ Styles get his revenge. And I think they have pretty good chemistry together also. But then all that greatness I thought was kind of washed away when AJ Styles lost this match. And that baffles me for so many reasons. I mean, AJ Styles, he needs it. He needs this big victory on this major platform. Because, if he's already going to be losing, his first real feud, that's going to make him look a little weak, make him lose a little momentum, especially as Chris Jericho is like the Big Show in that he's generally used as talent enhancement. So that was baffling, but it's even worse because the whole point of this story was that Chris Jericho was successfully getting under AJ Styles' skin. He was costing him matches with distractions. And then when AJ Styles tried the same thing, it would backfire. Chris Jericho would not fall for it, and it would just make AJ look kind of foolish. So the whole point of this match was that, he would prove that even though he's not as crafty as Chris Jericho, that he is the stronger wrestler, that he has more heart, more skill, whatever. That he would be the one who gets his vengeance by winning this match. But since he lost, it just makes me think that, Chris Jericho is right. He is just a flash in the pan who just could not keep up. And from what I understand, he's now the new number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. What the fuck? That's how you're going to build up that momentum, by having him lose to Chris Jericho? He's now not a credible number one contender. If anything, they should probably put Chris Jericho in that spot because, to be honest, that was the only reason I thought he did win, was because they're going to do something important with him. But how AJ Styles, after losing his WrestleMania match, is going to be the number one contender. I just hate that kind of booking. It makes no sense to me. And the match itself wasn't bad. It was alright, I guess, but it wasn't as good as their previous matches. Their Fastlane bout was much, much better. But even like their various clashes on Raws and SmackDowns, I thought were more exciting than this one. But it was still okay. It just seemed like it wasn't quite as... It had the wrong kind of pacing. It was almost like they were supposed to do a cool-down match with this, but it kept speeding up and slowing down, and this is actually the first time when I started feeling, the effects of exhaustion. Following this, oh my god, this pissed me off. The New Day versus the League of Nations. Now, if you read my written review, I actually had this listed as Tag Team Championship. I thought the titles were on the line while I was watching this. I don't remember any indication that this wasn't a title match, even though I thought it was odd that the New Day didn't leave with, or not the New Day, the League of Nations didn't leave with the titles. So why weren't the belts being defended on the biggest platform in fucking WWE, in the grandest stage of them all? That makes absolutely no sense to me. Well, the only reason they won was because, they weren't on the line, was because they didn't want to take the belts off the New Day yet, but they wanted the League of Nations to win. So that was kind of a cop-out. The story never really caught fire, but the New Day is funny enough to where I enjoyed most of their stuff. I think they were hoping for like a Shield versus Wyatt's dynamic, and it wasn't that exciting, but I guess it was watchable. I think it's too early for the New Day to turn baby faces, but whatever. And this wasn't a great match. To me, it was just average. They've had some better clashes on Raw. There were some weird parts, too, because Big E at one point took a big bump on the outside, and he looked like he potentially legitimately knocked himself out. And I could have sworn he was the legal man, and yet Kofi Kingston just kind of walks in and takes his place, which led me to believe that Big E was seriously hurt. I haven't heard of anything, and maybe I missed it, but even Michael Cole just kind of like seemed a little confused. He's like, oh, well, I guess Kofi's the legal man now. So that was weird. But generally, I just thought this was kind of slow and underwhelming. And the ending, when Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, and Shawn Michaels came out to kick the shit out of the New Day, or not the New Day, League of Nations, I got a little annoyed. It's supposed to make me like squee and joy because, you know, these were the guys I grew up with. But all I kept thinking was, wow, this just buries the tag team championship too, since the guys who just beat the tag team champions got their asses kicked by a bunch of old dudes who, other than Shawn Michaels, they look kind of out of shape. Like even Stone Cold is a bit pouchy now. I mean, you could probably kick my ass, but I'm a pussy, so so I was like, really, I know WWE loves its nostalgia trips, but all this does is tell us that the past was better than the present, and that does not give a lot of credibility to the current roster. But they always do this shit, and it's going to get worse before the night is over. Brock Lesnar versus Ambrose. There were some booking problems for me, just in that Ambrose would never stand a chance against Brock Lesnar. They kept like building up that this is going to be Ambrose's specialty match, but they did the same thing back when he fought Rollins at Hell in a Cell, where they said, you know, in most situations, you know, Rollins would probably win, but this is the type of scenario where Ambrose is going to have the advantage, and he still fucking lost that match. And he lost this one too, so it just kind of ended exactly how we thought it would, making it kind of pointless. There was still some good build-up here that I liked, but it's just Lesnar dominating Ambrose until Ambrose scores a low blow and then starts getting a little bit of an edge. But so our babyface Ambrose has to cheat just to stand a chance and still lose. And the weapons that they really built this around, the chainsaw, the bat with barbed wire in it, none of them really come into play. Ambrose gets them out at one point and seems ready to use them, but Lesnar attacks him before anything could happen. Not that I could blame WWE there, because you're obviously not going to have Ambrose chainsaw Brock Lesnar. Although I think it would have been funny if he did get it started and did chase Lesnar like around the ring, only for it to like the power to die or something. That would have been cool. But otherwise, I thought this was just very underwhelming, very predictable. And this is also when I started falling asleep. In fact, I did fall asleep during the next match, and that's what caused me to turn it off and come back the following day. And that is the WWE Women's Championship. Charlotte versus Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. And I really love that WWE is discarding the Divas Championship, which is a horrible belt anyway, and kind of misogynistic when you think about it. So that was really cool of them. Unfortunately, there's still some issues with the writing of the story, in that the winner, Charlotte, required help from a man. WWE baby steps, I guess. We're still in a little misogynistic territory, but at least they're making some progress, so I can't complain too much. And the writing of this never really stuck out to me. It seemed to me like Charlotte or Becky and Sasha kind of forming a friendly rivalry just a friendly rivalry, put Charlotte in babyface odds, but nevertheless, all three women I thought played their roles well, and the match actually was pretty good. That's what kind of makes me sad that I fell asleep through it. So I went back the next day. I made sure to start from the beginning, but it had a pretty fast pace. I thought all three women stood out individually. They all had their moments to shine. There were even a few times when I was sure somebody else was going to come out with the victory. And when Charlotte won, I'm okay with that decision, but at the same time, I think, well, she shouldn't have had Ric Flair save her. But I personally was hoping Sasha would get it. This seemed like this would be the perfect star-making moment for her, considering, fans are obviously more intrigued by her than by any of the other ladies in the locker room. So I don't despise this decision to put Charlotte over, because Charlotte's a great heel and she's been a pretty dominating champion, but personal preferences. But still, this was actually a pretty good match. Shane versus The Undertaker. And this is going to be a very, very difficult one for me to describe, because part of me loved it, part of me hated it. The storyline started off awesome just because you did not see it coming. Unfortunately, then the logic issues started coming in, where it's like, well, wait, if The Undertaker loses, and this is supposed to be his final WrestleMania match, because that's the stipulation Vince added, that if he loses, he's done. Can't Shane just overrule that, since he'd have the power if he wanted to? That's what I thought they were going to do. I was sure Shane was going to come out on top. But then, you think, these guys are kind of old, especially Shane, who doesn't, at least with Undertaker, he has that badass presence. He looks like he could still kick the shit out of anybody in the roster. Shane's visibly aged, so I just don't really buy him as a badass anymore. So I was sure they'd do something else, but not. It was just a traditional Shane versus Undertaker match. At first, I didn't like it. I thought it was clumsy, slow paced, and I was getting bored again. And then the spots began, and they took some nasty bumps, and this culminated in Shane jumping off of that fucking cage and missing an elbow drop right through an announce table. That was horrifying, and that forced me to kind of appreciate this match, because they tried so hard. Yeah, it was very emotional that, when it ended, Undertaker obviously respects Shane, and the fans were on Shane's side as he's carried out. I felt it. I willed myself to feel it, but at the same time, they probably shouldn't have gone that far. It just seemed very reckless and tasteless, considering all the injuries that have been going on. And Shane, he's not a young man anymore, so it just seemed like WWE shouldn't have had to resort to this. Furthermore, it's such a big, explosive spot that they probably should have just made this the main fucking event, because nothing is going to match it. So it's like, I don't know if I love or hate this match. It's a tough call. Big moment, though. I think it would have worked better as a climax to this show than, part of the closer to the middle of it. Jesus Christ, we're still a few matches to go. And the next is, oh god damn it, The Rock. At first he's just kind of saying that they broke records. Then the Wyatts come out, and then The Rock both builds him up and yet tears him down. And so then he challenges them to a match. And who does Bray send out? Rowan, because of course he would. Let's ignore the fact that Bray would stand a better chance against The Rock. Braun Strowman would stand a better chance against The Rock. He's going to send the guy who hasn't won a match since probably 2014 to defeat the legend. Urgh. And of course, The Rock beats him in 6 seconds. And this is once again nostalgia being kind of self-destructive, reminding us that the past is better than the present. Let's just bury your current roster even more. Every time I think I cannot take the Wyatt family any less seriously, they do something that makes me take them less seriously. They get crushed by Undertaker and Kane in 5 minutes. That's career killing. They lose to Big Show, Kane, and Ryback, the talent enhancement group. That's even worse, arguably. And then they get squashed by The Rock in 6 seconds. And then, of course, they try to, avenge Rowan, but then Cena comes out, and the segment wasn't bad. It was just when they do that to certain members of the roster, especially with the Wyatt family, who are supposed to be scary and dominant, even though they're not, that makes me angry. The Rock's not going to be showing up that often from here on out. They don't need to put him over Rowan in this fashion.